Hi, this is Alex, and I'm just going to walk you through how I retouched this image. So I opened it up into Photoshop and duplicate, put a new layer on. We're just going to zoom in a bit because the first thing we're going to do is look at the skin. Now, this client doesn't like a lot of heavy retouching. She likes it to look really natural. So I'm just using a really light healing brush here, just to get rid of that little bit under the eye. We'll reduce the opacity, so we'll bring it back a tiny bit. There, we just reduced it. New layer, and we'll just do a couple of the more obvious skin imperfections here. Basically anything that looks like a pimple we're going to get rid of. And I'm just selecting from the areas of skin closest to the bit I'm trying to get rid of. As you can see, we're not doing an awful lot here, just a few odd little places. Okay, new layer. And just gonna do those neck creases. We'll get rid of them completely. And then reduce the opacity of the layer to bring them back just a little bit because we don't want it to look plastic. Okay, then we want to zoom down a little bit, just make sure that's okay. Yep, looks fine. That hand's got some motion below anyway, so that's good. Zoom out, yep. Now I'm doing a dodge and burn. Now this is, if you Google how to dodge and burn using curves, this is basically just a shortcut panel that allows me to do it in one click, but it's exactly the same method. So with the brush on a really low flow of 2%, just dodging in some of the shadow areas that I want to flatten out. Okay, and then burning in any highlights that I don't want as well. Not quite sure where my brush has gone. It's disappeared. I'm actually using the tablet and pen here. It's gone bye-bye. There it is. Not quite sure where that went. Okay, and then we're just going to put a little highlight down the nose, down the chin there. Nice big one under the eye there, nice little triangle under the cheeks, a little bit on the forehead. This is all incredibly subtle, but it all builds up gradually. And then same thing, we're just going to burn in a little bit on her cheekbones, around her jawline, fill in that little gap there on the nose. There on the hairline. Now that's why you can't see it. The brush is so, I'm using a very small brush there. That's why it's not visible. Sorry about that, guys. You have to imagine. Okay, I then went in and burnt some of the hair as well, just because it's backlit. So there's not a lot of contrast there, so I just wanted to bring in the contrast. Now I find with this hair colour, she's got incredibly dark hair, almost black hair, it's very easy if you bring up the highlights too much to make it look grey. So I'm usually quite careful with not to add too many highlights. Okay, then we'll zoom out, just turn that on and off. You can see the effect of all that dodging and burning. Very subtle, but it does make a big difference. Okay, now I'm not super crazy about that line going around the back of her head there. That was actually part of a lamp, which I didn't notice while I was shooting it until too late. So I'm just going to use the clone stamp tool and I'm just going to get rid of that as best I can. Nice and quickly. It's not a perfect job. Oops. And if I make a mistake, I just go back and redo it. The do-over button is fantastic. I don't tend to use the history brush, to be honest, because if I make a mistake, I correct it pretty quickly. And everything's done on its own layer, so if I make a complete hash of it, I can just delete the whole layer and I don't lose all my previous work. Okay, a little bit of delicate work around the fingers there, just to get rid of that little bit. Change the flow again. I tend to change the flow rather than the opacity. I just find it works better, but I know lots of people use the opacity instead of, or as well as the flow, and that's fine, just whatever works for you. The cool thing about Photoshop is that there's so many different ways of doing the same thing, achieving the same results. Okay, just going to neaten that little bit out there. Just got it in a nice low opacity, just to smudge things in a little bit, and there's still a little line up there. I find zooming in and out a lot really helps. You can tend to get tunnel vision after a while if you're not careful. There we go. Okay, just going to delete that empty layer, so I don't need that. And this is the really cool thing. This is Pratik Naik's Infinite Colour Panel, and it's amazing for colour grading. You literally just keep clicking the button until you find something that you kind of like. Yeah, like that. Like that one. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, let's go with that one. No. Okay, let's go back to the previous one. Yep, like that one. Now we can change, I'm going to change the name just so I don't lose it, turn it off. Now I'm going to try another one. Find another one that I like and turn that one on as well. And then I can change the blend mode or the opacity of both those layers until I get a nice combination that I like. There we go. I quite like the colour grading to be done quite subtly. I used to spend hours messing around with curves and that kind of thing, and then not liking what I ended up with, and this has just been a game changer for colour grading. I'm not affiliated at all, I just really like it. It's kind of like playing roulette. The tricky thing is knowing when to stop and stick with something you like. And the other cool thing is each of those layers within the colour panel, you can go in and adjust each of those separately if you really want to. Most of the time, I find layering and changing opacity gives enough control that I don't really have to do that. So that's kind of nice. It's just brightened things up a bit, made it a nice, bright, airy, positive feel to the picture, which is what I was after. Then just get a stamp layer of all the previous layers, and I'm just going to go into alien skin. There's a few things I like with alien skin. Yeah, I tend to use a very subtle approach here as well. Just going to put a very, very light sun flare effect in the corner. That's way too much, so we're going to bring it right down just to enhance what's already there naturally. Bring a little warmth in. So off, on. And I really like the sharpening in this program as well. You can add grain as well. It's got lots of cool film sets which I hardly use anymore, but I don't know, it's a fun little program to play around with. That's alien skin exposure. And then drop the opacity of that layer as well, usually around to about 70%. I find looks nice. And there we go. That's the finished picture.